A word to the wise. This episode contains spoilers for the entire Dead Rising franchise. Listener discretion is advised. On the season finale of Electronic Fun, I'm joined by ROBBYDUDE to dive deep into Capcom's zombie funhouse Dead Rising and 2000's butt rock. So please, join me. Let's have some fun.
I hope this wasn't time sensitive. I am really sorry.
The most interesting thing that's going on is a Mariners game in about 10 minutes, but I could skip it. It's fine.
You could just come here and watch it.
Exactly.
Are they here for while they're playing it, or are they somewhere else?
Yes, it's a home game against the
Okay.
Astros.
Ooh.
The assholes.
Is that what people call them?
No.
Oh.
Welcome back to Electronic Fun, everybody. The Italian stallion ROBBYDUDE is here.
The funny thing is that's what people call me. They call me the Italian stallion. Quite often, actually.
It's a very common thing. People say it all the time in Freak Chat. Very common occurrence.
True. Thank you for having me on. You asked me to be on your podcast a long time ago, it feels.
I asked you back before I had this program all set up. It was months ago, and then you were very concerned that you just weren't going to be on because I didn't tell you that you're the very last one.
You kept having people on your show. I was like, oh man, I can't wait till I'm there. But it's great to finally be on the good old pod.
The pod.
The pod.
You have your own podcast empire, but let's get into that. Robby, who are you? How would you describe yourself?
I am Robby. I would describe myself as a creator of mediocre content. Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't want to say a mediocre content creator. I want to say it backwards so that it sounds a little bit cooler. And so I can say it to my mom without wincing.
Mom, I'm a content creator, Mom.
No, Mom, I create content.
There's so many people that listen to the Down Air podcast.
You have no idea, Mom. My mom, I talked to her on the phone yesterday, and she was like, "Are you going to stream tonight?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Okay, I might be in the chat. I like when people say hi to me." I was like, "Yeah, that's awesome."
It's like how Jackson's mom is in his chat all the time.
I know. That's great. I like seeing it because she subs and stuff. She'll like interact. My mom stops by and she's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh, great, Mom." And then everybody says hi. And she's like, "Okay, bye." Like in 5 minutes.
She just wants the attention, like a cat.
I think so. I'd like, hey, I'll give it to her. You know?
Sure.
I keep telling her to come on the stream.
That'd be really funny. The Robby's mom stream.
That's what I'm saying. It might last like maybe 20 minutes, but like I'll do it.
Who knows? But yeah, you've done a lot of different things. You've been around on the internet for a very, very long time.
Thanks.
It's true.
It's true.
You have your own Liars Club with friend of the show Jackson.
An enemy of the show, Clown Depot.
Any enemy of the show, Clown Depot. Chase will never be on this program. Never.
You can count on it.
Count on it, motherfucker. But yeah, you've done a lot of very interesting things, and it's very nice to have you on this program.
Yeah.
How did your relationship with games begin? When did you start playing games?
Oh my God. The earliest memory of liking a video game and being like, yeah, I think I could do this forever, was when I was a kid at a family's friend's house. And I think at that point I had an NES, but I had like Rocky and Bullwinkle and like Sesame Street count 'em ups or whatever.
Awesome.
So like I didn't really like get like I played video games, but it wasn't something I was like terribly interested in. But at my family's friend's house, they had Super Smash Brothers on Nintendo 64, and I remember sitting down and picking Kirby because he looked the cutest, and I pressed B and I sucked up Pikachu from one of my favorite television shows, and I became Kirby, but I was wearing a Pikachu hat. And for some reason, that technology blew me away. And when I was in the car going home, I said, "Mom, we have to stop by a Toys R Us and get me an N64."
It has to be done.
And I think that's when my brain was poisoned. I think that's when the rot started, and I begun wanting to play video games and actively looking into playing video games.
Kirby, that's how they get you.
It's true.
With the one tough cream puff. That's how they
Yeah.
get you.
And that's what they call him. They call Kirby the one
him.
touch cream puff.
Well, now that we've gotten the background information about you out of the way, let's talk about the game at hand. This week we're talking about Dead Rising, which came out in the year of our Lord 2006. Which it feels like a game that's much newer than 2006. It feels like a later Xbox 360 title, but this was like maybe the first big Xbox 360 game.
Yeah, I don't think, if my dates are correct, I don't think it was a launch title. I think it was supposed to be like on the day it came out, but I'm pretty sure it was like launch week or like launch month instead of the launch day. Or it might be, because I remember it was supposed to be. I remember Dead Rising was supposed to come out like when the 360 was coming out. It was in development for a pretty long time. But then things happened and they had to delay it a little bit. So I think it came out a little bit later.
Yeah, the 360 came out in November of 2005, which doesn't sound real.
Yeah, so almost 10 months after it came out. Yeah, there you go.
And then August of 2006 was when Dead Rising came out.
Mm-hmm.
But what is Dead Rising? Sort of explain what it is, maybe a little bit of the plot as well. You can talk about whatever spoilers you want.
Sure. Really? We're just getting the spoilers?
Doesn't matter.
Awesome. All right. Hey, if you haven't played Dead Rising and you care about the story, I hope you don't care about the story anymore. Dead Rising.
At the beginning of every episode.
Spoiler warning. We're gonna talk about the last scene where. Oh, that's my alarm to wake up.
Get up.
We're gonna talk about the ending where Frank West becomes Mega Man, and that's a whole different story. Dead Rising. I always describe Dead Rising as the zombie game. It's a zombie game that and I feel like saying it's a zombie game kind of puts itself in its own genre, but allow me to explain. It's a game that perfectly recreates your favorite moments from zombie movies. To be more general, it's a third-person adventure with RPG elements, which could probably describe every video game ever made. But it's kind of its own beast. There's not a lot of video games that kind of emulate Dead Rising's pacing and style. It's a escort mission based video game. It has leveling up and XP. It has photography mechanics because Frank West is a photographer, so he can take pictures of zombies. It's got a lot under the hood, but you control a character in third person who can pick up weapons and destroy or shoot zombies, or to get to the main goal of saving survivors.
Yeah, you're running around in a mall. You can pick up whatever you need to use as a weapon. You have to save survivors, fight crazy people, and solve the mystery of what's going on in this mall
of Willamette
in Colorado, I think.
Yeah,
which I always think is farther west than it actually is for some reason.
Yeah, it's kind of just smack dab in the middle of the Americas, huh?
Yeah. The only thing between me and it is the fallow state of Kansas.
Where nothing happens.
Nothing happens in Kansas. I'm saying this right now. What was your first experience with this game? Where were you in your life at that time?
I think I don't even remember if I saw it launch week, because I remember the 360 coming out, but I was so into like Nintendo stuff and getting excited for the Nintendo Wii that I just like kind of looked over 360 stuff in general. But I would see Xbox 360 stuff come on the television all the time when I was watching G4. And I think the first time I ever saw Dead Rising was like on G4. But the first time I ever like saw it and be played, me and my friend Andy, who had an Xbox 360 and I didn't, I would always go over his house to play his Xbox 360. He'd always go over my house to play my GameCube. He was like, "What game should we get?" And I remember it was like a used copy of Dead Rising. I was like, "Let's get this one. It's got like zombies in it." I saw cool commercials for it. And we played it, and we were both like, it was one of those, you're sitting in front of a television with your friend, both enamored at what you're seeing, and you just try to blast through the whole thing as quickly as possible. That's what happened to me with Dead Rising. It was just kind of like a game that we both picked up for their system, and then winded up just trying to play all the way through. We didn't, because the game was very hard for our developing brains in, I think, middle school. But yeah, it was. I love experiences like that. I've had experiences like that with Ape Escape 2 as well, where you love a game so much with a friend after you rent it that you just try to beat it as quickly as possible. But yeah,
you're a big Ape Escape head.
so I'm not, but Ape Escape 2, I remember so clearly. I remember everything that happens in that game. I don't know why that game impacted me so much. We should have done this about Ape Escape 2, the game I played.
All right,
once.
I have to rewrite all my questions now to be about Ape Escape 2.
Ask the same questions, but I'll just try to put into context of Ape Escape 2. It'll be fine. It'll work out fine.
I feel like I almost had a very similar experience to you. I'm a little bit younger than you, so when the first time I saw this game was my dad playing it when he got an Xbox 360.
Yeah.
I remember when the Wii game came out, the Wii version of this came out a couple years later. I tried to play it multiple times when I was a kid, but and also the sequel as well. The sequel is what I have more childhood memories about. But the timed elements freaked me the fuck out when I was in like middle school or elementary school, and I like couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I never actually played through either of the Dead Risings until this year when I watched my friend of the show Jordan play it.
Yeah, it's again something else I completely forgot to mention when describing what the game is, just because there's so many different elements to it. It's one of those video games that's timed, but like the entire game is timed. It's a 72-hour limit. You have to beat the game within the in-game time of 3 days. And you can't stop the clock at any point. It's just continuously ticking down. Events are continuously happening throughout the game. And I hear that a lot. I hear that it makes the game kind of extremely hard to approach, because there's just this looming like, hey, the game is going to be over, so you better get everything done as quickly as possible. Which is like completely fair. And whenever people say that, I'm not like, oh, but you just got to stick through it. But you just got to stick through it. Because it makes that game so much better. But yeah, I completely understand where it's like, yeah, that game could be super intimidating, especially if you've never played anything like that before. And then yeah, going on to the Wii version. Yeah, that Wii version's real silly. That Wii version has like zombified poodles and zombified parrots that attack you. Speaking of parrots, Watermelon knows about Dead Rising. Watermelon's my little lovebird who's chirping on in the background. Huge Dead Rising fan. Loves Chuck Green in Dead Rising 2.
Give a little jacket.
Yeah, we got a little Ijik jacket on. But yeah, that Wii version's really silly, but it introduces people to the Dead Rising universe. And also isn't that bad. It's built off the Resident Evil 4 engine, though, and you can kind of tell because there's no jump button.
Yeah, that is very weird that it doesn't have a jump button, but it does have very good aiming, like Resident Evil 4 on the Wii.
Yes, yes, it does.
Much better than on a stick on the 360.
I completely agree. Yeah, that Wii aiming is unbeatable, and also the aiming in Dead Rising on 360 kind of blows chunks. It's like not that good.
That it was very early Xbox 360 game. People were still trying to figure out how to make aiming work.
I don't think Gears of War came out yet.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, let's we kind of mentioned. I have a couple questions about like the timed elements and stuff, but I'll save that for a little bit later when we get into the actual gameplay. So most of the game you're running around and fighting things. How's the combat?
The combat is to put it bluntly, overtly simple.
Yes.
You can pick up a 2x4 and you have one attack with it, which is to whack a zombie with it. And that's like I think the simplicity of it is pretty important. Just because there's so many things going on to like wrap your head around, you probably can't be thinking about doing DMC combos on zombies, but also just for like the sheer amount of items you can pick up that make combat super interesting. Like I mean, if you're walking through a plaza and to the left of you is a hardware store, that just opens up like 50 different ways that you can go about getting rid of zombies. Even with like just 10 weapons in there. So and also, picking up items and putting them into your inventory also gives this experience of, okay, well, I have this weapon, but it's kind of low. I don't want to use it yet. I might run out of ammo, or it might destroy before I get to the place that I need to go. So let me real quick take a pit stop over at this place because I know that there's a great weapon in there. So the combat is more ingrained in the kind of process of playing the game and like getting through to the end, and seeing the story and the interacting with the environment, than it is more just just you are just pressing a one button every single time to cut zombies up.
There's like a bazillion different things you can pick up and use, even though the best weapon in the game is the mannequin torso that kills everything in one hit.
It's so good, and you get them
It's
like immediately.
You get them as soon as you leave like the safe house that you have in the mall. There's a bunch of mannequins, and you can throw them against a wall and use the torsos that will kill a zombie in one hit. And basically, the entire time I played the game, I just used that only. It was awesome.
Yeah, and they last super long too in comparison to a lot of different items, which is great.
It's insane. And then
You
of
get
course
two of them.
You get to the final boss, and then you don't have any of that, so you have to use your melee combat. And I'm like, oh shit, how do I do any of the moves that I unlocked throughout the entire game?
You should have learned. Yeah, no, it's stuff like that is why I think Dead Rising is great. I feel like everybody kind of gets their niche of like how they go around getting them all, or like going around them all and getting items. So I also like primarily when I leave the escape room, or I leave the safe room. Something I do is also just immediately get two two mannequin torsos, because they're right there and they're super super good. But there's also a metal pole there, which is also really fast and really good. If you look around there, there's always going to be food in there. So like that little opening area where the safe room goes to, where the elevator is, there's like a lot of really really good, quick, fast, easy to get items that can get you ready to go through the mall. And I think they did that on purpose, but it just goes to show how much they like really gave a shit about placing items in very specific places. I think they nerfed the mannequin torso in Dead Rising 2. I think it has like a completely different move set, and it's super weak now. But in comparison, those like when you go to like a movie theater and they have like the ropes that are set up, and they have like the stands that hold up the ropes. They have those all over the casino. You can pick those up, and they do the same exact thing. Same move set, same amount of health, same amount of damage. They're fucking awesome.
I mostly just relied on the boxing gloves with Bowie knives on them. Those were my main weapons in Dead Rising 2.
Oh yeah, the
Those
Wolverine claws.
But like we mentioned earlier, there are a lot of timed elements in the game where quests are always happening, and they basically have life meters the whole time.
Yes,
that like tell you how much time is left on a thing, and you can like very easily miss a lot of the main quests and stuff. So I guess the question is really, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I love it just because it's so unique. I feel like the only kind of games that really do that now are like these huge open world games that are like, somebody's asking for help, go see what it is, and like the mission doesn't really matter. But like every single mission, every call you get in Dead Rising is important, is completely unique from every other mission. And that just like goes hand in hand with, its roots as it's kind of an open world game. I don't like calling it an open world game. It's more like it's more contained than I would say an open world. But when you explore around the mall, I feel like the timed elements Uh, they can be stressful, and I think that's by design. But moreover, I think they really help you enjoy parts of the game that you wouldn't otherwise, because they do want you to try and see everything. There's an achievement to save every survivor. So obviously they want you to do that at some point. But I think the timed elements just kind of help you move that along and kind of put the stress of, okay, I'm in here for 3 days. It makes it feel a little bit more like there's stakes, because they remove the time limit in later games,
Yeah.
and it kind of proves that point of the urgency and the stress that comes along with the timed elements does really further that product of like, yeah, I only got a few, only got a few days in here, so I really gotta like hustle and see how fast I can get across the mall, and see if I can take any shortcuts, or maybe there's a vehicle I can get that makes me go faster, or maybe
Yeah.
there's like an item I can find that makes me go faster. So like really that those exploration moments kind of lend hand in hand to the next time you play Dead Rising. This is one of those games that has New Game Plus. One of the games that it was inspired by was Dragon Quest, where you can just play the game again and have all your stats. So that you can play the game again with like your level 50 souped up Frank West, and have chances to explore because you know what you're doing now, and you don't want to miss that wonderful experience of saving all 50 survivors. Always feels really good when you pull it off. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, I think the main thing about the timed elements is that it really keeps the pace really snappy, because a
yes,
lot of there's a risk when you make a game like this of having the player get too engrossed in the world, which, it's not a bad thing to have the player be engrossed in this detailed mall. But at the same time, you also want them to be able to like see everything and not sort of get them lost and like, oh, what am I supposed to do? Where am I going? You always know what you're doing. You always know where you have to go. And I think that the timing really helps with that.
yeah, every mission has like a crazy taxi arrow that points you in the precise location you have to go. So it's not like you never not know where to go. And the map is pretty helpful with that too. It's more so like, am I gonna have time to do that? Like, what can I do to get there on time? Okay, well I can skip this mission because I guess I'll just skip this one. Because then I can rush over here and have plenty of time to save those guys. But they're in a real awkward place, and I wouldn't be able to make it over to the story mission on time. So like, there's a lot of very fun problems that you have to solve before you even go forward and begin the mission. Which I think no game really does at all ever. Like Dead Rising is kind of the only game series I can think off the top of my head that really does stuff like that. That makes you kind of really respect your time, and try to come up with the fastest solution to do something, because otherwise you're gonna fail every single one. And yeah, like you were saying, it does kind of validate that world and make you explore and try all the different mechanics, and really gives a reason for the struggle. A lot of people ask for Dead Rising to just kind of be an open world fuck around game. Uh, and I think that can work, but I think Dead Rising's structure is kind of too simple for that. And of course, again, that's all by design. They don't want you to be overloaded with information and give you too many complicated things, um, like an entire huge list of combo weapons to create. But it really does, like, people say I'm scared of the time limit, but like if you really start playing the game, you'll understand why it's there and why it isn't that big of a deal. Like you can still get through the
Yeah.
game and enjoy it very, very, very easily.
Yeah. Uh, so we've mentioned the mall a lot in these last few questions.
Yeah, it's important.
Uh, why? What do you think it is about the mall that makes it such an interesting game world?
Uh, Willamette Mall feels so detailed, more than like any other location in a video game I've played. Uh, like you go, obviously, like, the drive up to Willamette, the opening of the game is you flying through a small town and seeing how the dead have risen and how they're affecting the town. And then you
Mhm.
go up to Willamette Mall and they've got these like sale signs, closing store, parks or cars all parked in the parking lot. And when you go into the mall, you're in the entrance plaza and you can peer through and you can see all of these different items lined up. And you can go to the back. And then once the zombies start rolling in, you can try to find out how you can weave and go under these pillars and jump up on these fountains. And then by the time you're up and you're in the safe room, you realize, like, man, this is a fun place to this is a fun place to run around in. I mean, obviously there's the movie reference of which of the Dead? It's Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the
Uh
Dead.
the Dawn of the Dead, like, wouldn't it be cool if you can just live in a mall? So much so that there's like a giant sticker on like the launch versions of the game that say this has no relation to the Dawn of the Dead series.
Yeah. There's a
Like, just
lawsuit and everything.
yeah, like, yeah, there was a huge lawsuit and everything. But like the stickers on the front are maybe the funniest things that they had to do. But like, it just that setting for this kind of game is obviously so genius that they did it in a movie. And so they just ripped that off and did it in this video game. Uh, but like, just getting around the mall and exploring and using Frank's abilities of, jumping and being able to get to high places and throw stuff down or shoot zombies, or even when you're trying to maneuver around the zombies. So it's like, okay, let me jump up on this playground and then I'll try to jump onto that house, and the game rewards you because there's an Uzi up there. So like, the game really does like let you kind of crawl through different stores and like, oh, I'll go around through here because the zombies have a harder time. There's just a lot. I mean, obviously, if you just like watch Dawn of the Dead, not to say like this game is good because of Dawn of the Dead, but
Uh-huh.
like it really does like give you that fantasy of being able to rummage around and crawl through the vents of a mall and find shortcuts. And there's a giant
Yeah.
grocery store you could go to and you can just eat food nonstop and like never die. It's great.
Yeah, there is a real interconnectedness to the whole mall, especially later on when you unlock more. One of the things that you get as a reward for saving a survivor is access to a shortcut that takes you in between the two major halves of the mall.
Yeah.
And that's a great reward to give to the player for exploring and also, saving people within the time limit. And that's the next question I have, which is about rescuing survivors, which is, I would say, the bulk of the game, other than the storyline mystery stuff. So it, on paper, having most of the game be escort quests where you have to drag people over to a safe house doesn't seem a whole lot of fun.
Hmm.
But do you like rescuing survivors, or do you find it tedious at times?
Uh, I would be lying if I said I didn't find it tedious at time. But I think that's kind of the fun. Um,
Hmm.
I saw a tweet from a friend of mine who recently was playing Dead Rising, and they said the AI of the survivors they're extremely stupid. They get caught on things frequently, uh, and it's really frustrating to try to get them around the mall. And that's all true. like,
Yeah.
they do get stuck on things, and they are kind of frustrating to get around the mall, which I think is again kind of what makes it so fun. Because I think it would be boring if they just like stayed on your ass and were perfect and didn't get hit by zombies and you just like walk from point A to point B. It really does feel like you are escorting a group of people who don't know what they're doing to get to the safe house. It has that same like urgency that every other part of the game does, where you have a survivor who, this one can pick up a gun and this one can't, but this one has a hurt leg, so you got to carry this person on your back. So how do you group them all up? And I feel like a lot of people don't know about the ability to like make them station at one spot, because you can go into third person aiming and then press the triangle button, which is like the "come on, follow me" button.
Mhm.
And you could get them to stay at one spot, which is probably the best button in the game. Like, having survivors be able to stay at one spot while you do everything around them and clear the path so that they can come through is so useful, especially with, getting them around things that would get them stuck. Um, because I feel like a big mistake is that people will just go, all right, follow me. And then they'll start running, not realizing that everybody is slower than Frank. Uh, but I think it's important. I think like that those escort missions and their wonkiness does kind of really play into what makes Dead Rising so great. In that it does feel like you're surviving, and it does really feel like you're even though the zombies are stupid and slow, uh, you are outnumbered, and like getting around them with your small army of survivors, you got to take care of them. You got to make sure that everybody gets there safe. You got to make sure that there isn't a stray zombie like biting someone while the other survivors just kind of watch in horror because they don't know what to do. Uh, so yeah,
Yeah.
when you usually when I tell people like, yeah, Dead Rising is a game that every single thing you do revolves around escort missions. It's kind of off putting. But it's just so much fun. I think I think the wonkiness of it like really sells the concept of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, the real kicker there is I think that if you tried to change any of it, like if you tried to make them perfect AI that always sticks behind you, you would lose something in that
Yeah,
change.
yes, you
And
definitely would.
that I think is the key to something that, while it might not be enjoyable all the time, is still a very effective game design choice that works well within the game that it's within.
Yeah, because they do kind of like quote unquote fix the AI in like Dead Rising 2 and subsequent games. Um, I say subsequent games, but the only time survivors are really there are three. Uh,
Mhm.
they do make them faster. They do make them smarter. They do make them be able to hold every type of weapon. There's a lot less survivors who are actually like hurt that you have to carry around. And like it still works because they're still slow and they're still kind of like dumb. And you can tell that like they probably dumbed them down a bit. Like you can see that the survivors like they can most likely do shit that's like really good, and the AI seemed strong enough to basically do everything that Chuck does. But I feel like
Mhm.
at some point, maybe in development, they were too smart, so they like dumbed them down a bit to make them, more like Dead Rising 1.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like if they, like I was saying before, if they're just like super perfect AI that knows exactly what to do and where to go and follows your every move and can kill a zombie really easily, then there'd be no point because like okay, then I'm just going from point A to point B because the survivor just is perfect and knows how to do everything.
Yeah,
Uh
there'd be no tension in the travel between those areas.
yeah, I think you can make a case that says like it's poorly designed. Um and I would refute that and say yes, it is poorly designed, and that is the point.
Yes.
They are clunky on purpose. I think survivors being dumb really sells that concept. Because if they were super smart, then the concept of saving survivors is like, well, they could have just fucking saved themselves.
Eh, eh.
And they do in
Uh,
Dead Rising 3. If there's a survivor that's around, you just tell them where to go, and then they walk off through zombies and just go straight to the safe house.
oh my god. I
Yeah, it's
haven't
bad.
played I've only played the first 2. I haven't played 3 or 4.
Don't bother.
Uh,
It's not worth it.
we'll talk about that later.
Yep.
So other than the escort missions and the mystery main storyline, there's also boss fights in this game.
Yes.
Uh, the psychopaths that are all sort of across the mall.
Yes. The very timely and appropriately named psychopaths.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So which one is your favorite, and which do you think is designed the best if they're different?
Oh, fuck you for asking this question. Uh so I think my favorite designed psychopath is either Adam the Clown or the grocery store clerk.
Mhm.
Um, both of which are obviously just like very, very like striking designs with their voice acting and stuff. They're they're
Yeah.
they're the psychopaths for like the commercials.
Mhm.
Um, of like these are the guys you put on the back of the box. And I mean, for good measure, they're hilarious, they're loud, they're colorful. The music involved with those bosses are so much fun. Um and yeah, I mean like Adam the Clown is iconic. Uh the convicts are iconic. Uh the shopping clerk, the grocery store clerk, iconic. But I think my favorite survivors, and I'm being general here because I can't pick one, are the ones that kind of like realize that they were doing something wrong and then come back to Earth, and you have to deal with the consequences of that. So like obviously something like snapped in them where the zombie outbreak traumatized them in some way, and they're just like they were unable to break out of that mindset. So like you have the
Mhm.
gun store clerk who at the end of your boss fight like runs outside after defending his gun store going, "You want guns that bad that you're willing to kill for them?" And then like kind of realizes what he was doing and then immediately gets eaten by a zombie. Or there's Cliff, who is this army veteran who just went to a dark place when the outbreak started after seeing his family get eaten by zombies, and kind of comes to as he's dying. But one of the more interesting ones is you fight a boss who is like a nerdy kid who throws Molotovs at you and runs around
Oh
through the
yes.
mall. And when you beat him, his crotch lights on fire comically. And you can take a picture of it, and it says comedy, haha. But you can save him. You can use the fire extinguisher that's next to him, and you can put out that fire, and he is no longer a boss. He is now a survivor that you have to bring back to the safe house. I love those bosses. I love the bosses who like kind of come to and are like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, I don't know what that was. Let's go back to the safe house." And if you do that last one, you get to get Molotovs for free from him later on because he just gives them to you.
It's fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like those ones where there's another one, a similar one in Dead Rising 2, where it's this lady who used to be a singer, and she thinks that all
Yes.
the zombies are in the audience. And
Yeah.
if you do everything that she tells you to do, then she'll just go with you and be a regular survivor. But if you like don't listen to her or disobey her or mistime something, you have to fight her as a boss. Which I think that's a really interesting way to have that sort of bring out the humanity in those characters that
Yeah.
are sometimes dehumanized in a lot of ways.
She yeah, Dead Rising 2, that boss is really good. I forget her name.
I don't remember
Um
either.
yeah, but she like the gimmick is that she's rigged a bunch of people with explosives because like she's out there. But like yeah, she tries to get you to make you put on this whole big show, and then she realizes like, "Oh wait, these are zombies. They're not actually humans." And then yeah, you get to save her.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure originally she was going to die, just because like in her cutscene she falls backwards into the group of zombies as if she was going to be eaten, and then once the cutscene is over, she's like, "Oh wait, this is bad," and then you get to actually save her, which I think is good because they're like the only other boss in Dead Rising 2 that's really like that is a character named Snowflake, uh, who is a who is a giant tiger.
yes.
And you get to save the tiger and bring the tiger back to the safe room. Uh,
Have it be your daughter's new pet.
yeah. So yeah, I really really like those that are like you get to actually save them or talk to them when they come to. Uh,
Yeah.
it's fun.
What I think one of the most interesting things about this game, I don't know if it got cut out of the final episode. Maybe talked about this during the Mega Man Legends episode, which is another Capcom game, which is why I was talking about it. Was that this game came out in an era of Capcom when they were really gunning for Western audiences.
Yes.
Uh, so it was like it was I would almost call it Capcom's weird like fallow period between the early 2000s and like maybe I think they got their shit together like 2017 when Resident Evil 7 came out. Uh
Yeah.
where they were really trying to chase after Western audiences, and a lot of this was based on Keiji Inafune's influence.
Hmm.
Uh but
Who is
I,
a hack, by the way? It
who
should
is
be
a
noted
hack? Did not
that
make Mega Man
who is
and
a
is a
fucking hack.
hack. But so as a Japanese game designed specifically for Western audiences, how do you think that affects the game's tone and feel?
I think it's integral, honestly.
Uh-huh.
Um, there were design docs for Dead Rising early on where Keiji Inafune was talking about how the designers of the game were gunning for this like very specific look, and how they were very obviously like being inspired uh like Japanese video games at the time.
Uh-huh.
And Keiji Inafune was like, I, no, hold on. We gotta change this back. This is like, we want this to be a game that takes place in America. You play as like you don't play as like a young boy. You play as like an old hairy man. We want like people to look ugly. We want the music to be like rock and roll. Like there was a point in Dead Rising's production where they were changing how all of the art looks and how all of the characters are drawn. There were some really, really like amazing Capcom artists that were working on the game at the time who have like very striking art. And then they were like, no, just make it just make it like this, make it look like this. Uh, and I think that works. I think that really does help the game. This game's ugly. like
Yeah.
this game like looks like a foot. And I think that's, again, like, not to its detriment. I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I think that really does elevate the game and give it its own kind of vibe. But yeah, I remember like reading an interview where he was saying like, just at the time all the games we were releasing were just too Japanese. Which is so funny coming from Keiji Inafune. With all of the games that he's released in the past, and how he winded up making some of the worst games ever made. But like I think that design philosophy of we have to pander to America like the perfect time for Dead Rising to come out. Because it does. It's a very like American feeling game. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Uh
And the thing that interests me the most about it is that, as opposed to where they would go with the series later, is that this game takes itself very seriously.
yes.
It's not like, I feel like if this game was made by American developers, it would have more of a sense of humor, which the other Dead Rising games are made by American developers and do have a greater sense of humor.
Yes, they do.
But this is very serious. Frank West takes himself very seriously.
Yeah.
And the only weird kooky stuff comes from the bosses. And the rest of the game takes itself incredibly, I don't want to say it's dour, but it's very self-serious.
Yes. Yeah, I think with it's a hot debate on like what is too serious, what is too funny. Uh
Mhm,
and Dead Rising kind of strikes that perfect balance of like a lot of the things that are funny are very character driven or like very player driven.
mhm.
Like you can make Frank West dress up like a superhero with a Servbot mask, and
Yeah.
like even then the game will try to be extremely serious about it, and kind of put that grunge onto it. Where in comparison to Dead Rising 2, it feels like you can't go 5 steps without like something funny happening. Uh, like, and all the combo weapons that you make are just hilarious. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's actually very, very good for that game. But yeah, I feel like it's something that people aren't really ready for are like how serious the story is, how the music is like it's very like there's not a lot of like fun like comedy to it. It's a lot of rock, a lot of metal. Um and yeah, I mean like there's still humor in the game. I mean like zombies still like fall from the second floor and fall flat on their face, and Frank West still picks up zombies over his head and they kick their little feet. Uh and obviously like you said, the bosses are just hilarious. Um but yeah, it takes itself very seriously, especially with its story. It really tries to sell you like what's going on in the world and why all of this is happening. Um, and I think it works. I think it's very striking. I think it's kind of jarring at first, considering like especially if you play Dead Rising 2.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but I think for Dead Rising 1, it really helps sell that plot of like, yeah, we're taking it seriously. Frank West is he's a guy that jokes around, and he's a guy that like is very aware of his situation as a photographer, but he really leans into that. It feels like he's there. And I think that's great. I think that works very well towards the overall plot of the game, especially because he takes himself so seriously. Every other character is like, oh my god, this guy. So I think it works better than a lot of other games that try to make the protagonist seem overtly serious, really trying to sell that plot. I think it works at Dead Rising just because everything is kind of built around that.
Hey, this is no time to ogle pretty girls, son. You looking to get yourself eaten alive by zombies?
What? Did you just say zombies?
Take a look out there. If those ain't zombies, what would you call them? There's been more and more of them since last night. Now, they're all that's out there. Look on the bright side. Zombies are stupid and slow. We should be safe in here. All right, then. Feel like making yourself useful? Take a look around the mall. Bring anything we can use for the barricade back here. Andale! Come on, pronto!
Yeah, it's better than something like for some reason the first game that's popping into my head of a very self-serious protagonist is Stranger of Paradise. That's the first thing that popped into my head.
Exactly. Yeah, like
it's not a Stranger of Paradise type scenario where he's so over the top that it makes you laugh, but there is a genuine seriousness to Frank. And that's my next question. Where do you think Frank West succeeds the most as a protagonist? And as a secondary question, how do you feel about the way that he's changed throughout the rest of the series?
Frank West is one of the best playable characters ever made in a video game.
I would agree.
Because he's ugly looking. He's like just kind of a normal guy.
He's very schlubby.
He's kind of schlubby. And he cares. The things he cares about are his scoop, which is the reason he went there. But if somebody is in trouble, he's very selfless. He will try to help people. Even given the situation he's in, where he is there for a very selfish reason. But like he doesn't care. He's the one with the camera, so like he's the guy that should be documenting all of this. He's the guy that can keep information from the government. Like he kind of knows his place as like a rebel in this situation.
He's the one who's got to take photos of ladies' boobs. He's
exactly.
got to do it.
Who else is gonna take creep shots of ladies? But like, I think it works just because he's a guy. Like he's just a normal, everyday guy. And like I was saying before, they really kind of designed him that way. There were some design docs of Frank where he looked like an action movie hero, and he just kind of isn't. Like he does things that do, and that's because it's a video game. But like when you get into the cutscenes and you see him like humbling around because he jumped out of a helicopter and fucked up his leg, and like when he's talking to people, he tries to take himself like seriously, and he tries to like, you know, be serious and you know, like it feels real. But like his one-liners are like, they feel genuine. You know what I mean? Like, It doesn't feel like he's cracking a joke. It feels like he like just really feels that way. Like he does take himself seriously. And that's why he's so funny. Cause like he's in the situation and he's real about it. He's not like obviously he'll make a joke about it, but like, again, it feels genuine. It feels like that's coming from a place of him just trying to explain himself. And again, he's caring. Like when there's somebody who needs help, or like you actually get to see him talk to somebody, he's very like understanding, and he's like, look, we gotta get you safe, and then we can talk about it. Like, I understand this must be hard for you. Like it's very cool to see a character that kind in that kind of situation. Not a lot of other characters are like that. So he's a good player character for that reason. He's a very good guy. And to answer your second question on how he kind of changes later on, in Dead Rising 2, he's not in the game at all. The only reference to him in Dead Rising 2 is there's another reporter character who they introduced. I believe her name is Julia Chang.
Something like that.
And like she kind of references Frank West at some point. Like they worked together, they were proteges or something. They only really start bringing in Frank West in the DLC and then in the re-release. Dead Rising 2 Case West basically reintroduces Frank West into the series, and then Dead Rising Off the Record just lets you play Dead Rising 2 as if Frank West were there. And they don't really change his character a lot. They make him older, obviously, so he's a little bit more wizened. But in the context of Dead Rising 2, they kind of change Frank to be like, yeah, after Willamette, he became this like this guy who writes books and he goes to all these interviews, and then he fell off super hard and he's looking for his next hit. Like that makes sense contextually of like the kind of guy that Frank West would become, because like, yeah, who wouldn't like let that fame get to their head and just kind of become like a couch potato after a while. And then in Dead Rising 3, he's presumed to be dead. I believe that there's a funeral that you can go to somewhere in the game that has Otis's picture in it from Dead Rising 1. And there's really no reference to Frank West. Except for the fact that you collect golden Frank statues around the world for no reason. And then Dead Rising 4 just completely destroys that character. It's a completely different character. It's not Frank West.
It's awesome.
They keep calling him Frank West, but that's not Frank West. Doesn't sound like him, doesn't look like him, doesn't feel like him. Just a completely fucking different character. And it was so different that it killed the series.
It's awesome. They did a great job. Thank you, Capcom Vancouver. You did a great job.
Thanks, Blue Castle Games. You fucks.
You fuckers. Yeah, I mean, you summed it up really, really well. Frank is he's, especially in this game, he makes jokes, but it never feels like the writer trying to make a funny joke. It feels like something real that Frank is genuinely reacting to.
Yeah.
And that's I think the key to what makes his character work, that he takes himself seriously, but also he's just a person and not like funny clown man like in Dead Rising 4.
Yeah.
So let's.
He makes a "that's what she says" joke in Dead Rising 4.
When did Dead Rising 4 get? 2016. Oh, good God.
Frank West at some point goes, "That's what she said," and laugh, user. Like,
Jesus Christ.
Stupid.
So let's talk a little bit about the story. The whole idea of the mystery of what's going on in Willamette. It's a lot more complicated than you would initially think.
Yeah.
The question is just, do you think the story's effective?
Yeah. I think it's one of the more effective zombie storylines. Because it explains where the zombies came from in a believable way, I would say. A lot of the times in zombie movies, the dead rises again because the devil cast a spell to make zombies grow out of the ground. I feel like the zombies in Dead Rising 1 are believable because of the story, and like they're kind of explained how they get infected and how they lose their minds and stuff. And it's revealed later on into the game that America wanted to breed more cattle, so they invented a serum that they could just give to insects that would, fly around normally like they do, but they would sting like animals like around the pen, and they would just breed more. They would become stupid. They would become fat and bloated, which is great for production because then they can make more meat. Something went wrong, and that serum got into hornets, and then those hornets got out and started stinging humans, and then America had to clean up their tracks in the very small town of Santa Cabeza and murdered thousands of people.
Yeah.
Which is that's like a great storyline of like of America just trying to take over a town just to make money, just to make a lot of money off of the meat processing. And then them fucking it up, and then them having to wipe out an entire town, an entire like civilization of people, just so that nobody knows that they wanted to make more meat. And obviously there's a huge like anti-capitalist kind of message in the game because of that. which is ironic because you're in a mall Black Friday. Am I right, folks? So, I mean, that storyline just in of itself is like, I think that's interesting. I think that's a cool way to look at the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Kind of tie it into consumerism in a way that isn't like stupid. Like it kind of makes sense.
It reminds me a lot of the way that they do it in the original Dawn of the Dead from the 70s. I haven't seen the Zack Snyder version, but I assume it's terrible because Zack Snyder makes bad movies.
Right.
It's a very similar thing where they're in the sort of towards the end of the movie, the characters are like looking around at the zombies in the mall and they're like, why do they keep wanting to come here? And they're like, well, maybe they just remember it. This is a place that they liked to be at.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, when you look at this game about funny zombies in a mall, you don't really expect them to make references to like paramilitary death squads and Operation Condor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the story is a lot more substantive and interesting than I think people give it credit for.
Yeah, it's easy to write this game off as a zombie game, and like I kind of think you still can. But I think there's something there. I think that it explains the zombie apocalypse in kind of an interesting way of like American conspiracies, and of course Frank West being a journalist loves that shit. So like he's very into the fact like, oh my god, I could bust this wide open. So like there's that too. Like it does kind of feed in on itself, and I think it really works for the setting, especially being just an American mall. Yeah, it's good. I have no complaints about the story. I don't think it's necessarily heavy-handed. You kind of just learn everything about it in one cutscene, and then like the rest of the game after that, which is like maybe 3 or 4 hours, kind of builds off of that. And yeah, no, it's I think it pushes the plot and gives context to exactly what's going on, and it's not like super cheesy. I think you can kind of feel for the characters in that situation.
I think having not played 3 or 4 of the ones I have played, I think it's easily the best story that they have in the series. It's clear, it makes sense, and it's very, very well developed.
Yeah, they really butcher that shit in 3 and 4.
Awesome. You love to see it. People drive their own franchises into the ground. It's great.
There's a character. Hey, spoilers for Dead Rising 3, everyone. There's a character in Dead Rising 3 named Nick Ramos. He is the playable character, which is, by the way, a great name. Like Frank West, Chuck Green, Nick Ramos, like those all sound like they're Dead Rising characters. Nick Ramos was a test subject for the Phoenotran system to make human zombies. Like they were making human zombies, but they winded up being immune. So Nick Ramos is an immune orphan child from Phoenotrans. And you find that out at the end of the game because you had a number tattooed on your neck the entire time. Yeah, they really just fuck up the entirety of like what they were trying to do. It like Dead Rising 1 is them going, we made zombies because we wanted to make more meat. And then at Dead Rising 3 they were like, no, we were actually trying to make zombies, like for no reason. Like it was
awesome.
Yeah, they kind of butcher that.
It's great.
Yeah,
like,
it's great.
Doesn't like Dead Rising 3 just have Chuck Green and his daughter in it, and like as a twist?
So Katie is Chuck Green's daughter. There's a girl character in Dead Rising 3 who's like your love interest the whole game, and it's found out at the ass end of the game that girl is Katie going under a different name. And Chuck Green shows up and he's like this fucking like big biker guy with fucking, he looks like Wolverine. He shows up, he's got a big beard, and he's like, Katie, I thought I lost you. And then he's like, I'm sorry that I left you and forgot about you. And I went crazy, I'm sorry. And then you drive in a car with him for a few, and he's like, I like killing zombies again. And then that's it. They just get Chuck Green in there for 5 minutes just to have Chuck Green in there. It's awful. It's real stanky. Frank's not there, by the way. They just got rid of Frank. They don't care about him.
Oh, my head hurts.
It's
did not-
interesting in concept, but they just fuck it up so bad.
Thank you, Blue Castle Games.
Thank you, Thank you, Capcom Vancouver. Thank you, Blue Castle Games.
Don't they like not exist anymore? Didn't they close down after Dead Rising 4 came out and like
Yup.
flopped terribly? Awesome. Yeah. Got a couple more rapid fire questions here.
Sure.
What do you think is the weakest aspect of the game?
I think really early on you're super weak. So you kind of play the game a lot more passively than you probably should. And I think a cool thing that the game does is that it doesn't put like a giant text marker that says, go here, pick this up, see what this is like. It just kind of gives you like those splash pages that you can choose to read if you want, and then you press B and they go away. But I think the game could do a little bit better of explaining its mechanics. I don't know how they would do it, but I feel like a lot of players get confused when they first start playing of like, what's the best thing to do? What should I do if I'm panicking? But yeah, I think it's just kind of hard to get into when you're a new player. Also, I think the save system is important for the game, but it's also extremely antiquated. I feel like you could put autosave in or like have an option for it and get away with it. I think it's just kind of like the game came out almost 2 decades ago. So like there's a few things that I feel like could be updated with a more recent release. But I mean, besides that, I think it's they're not too big of an issue. Somebody else could probably tell me some glaring problem with it, but
yeah, I think you're right on that. What do you think is the strongest aspect of the game? You might have already answered this question.
Game's fun.
Fun.
It's just so different. There's really no game that's like Dead Rising. You can make a third-person hack and slash zombie game, don't get me wrong. But there's really just no contained zombie game. That's why I call Dead Rising like a zombie game, because it just really like at some point I wouldn't call Left 4 Dead a zombie game. You know, it's a multiplayer shooter where you go around and there's zombies in it, but it's more based on like shooting and getting to the end as fast as possible. But Dead Rising is like, it feels like it's a game where the main premise is getting around zombies. And it's just I love it for that. I love how unique it is.
Yeah. It's certainly a very singular game for as many zombie games as there are, because
that's what I mean, right? Like Resident Evil's a zombie game.
There are a lot of zombie games, especially I think in the mid to late 2000s. There was a glut of zombie games from I don't know, maybe about 2006 to like 2013. When they were like running out of ideas, like what if the zombies were like mushroom people? That's how we got The Last of Us.
Yeah.
There was a real glut of zombie games, but none of them have. They've all almost sort of used zombies as a background thing, as like a background theming, like a haunted house. But this game is very much about the zombies.
Yeah.
Where they came from, navigating around them, trying to save people from them. It's about them first and foremost, and I think that in a way makes it special, even though it came from an era of a real overload of zombie stuff.
Yeah, I feel like if we're talking about video games specifically, I feel like the game to do zombies right and to do like the respect towards that film genre would be Dead Rising, like by far.
And even Resident Evil takes a lot more cues from just horror in general and not just zombie stuff. Even though zombies are like the main enemies that you fight. But,
I mean, there's also like giant alligators in Resident Evil.
and now in like Village, there's no zombies at all. You're just fighting like fucking like werewolves and vampires and shit.
Yeah.
It's more horror themed in general than being specifically about zombies.
Yeah.
What's your favorite location in the game? I mean, technically the mall itself is a location, but is there any specific area that you like the most?
I love the food court / Wonderland Plaza. Like that connected area of like, it's the place where you fight Carlito when he's like shooting you from above. It's like one of the first missions in the game. That was always like super striking to me. And then I absolutely adore the Wonderland Plaza, which is the big amusement park area that has the roller coaster going around, and that's where you fight Adam the Clown. And that's where the big shortcut is. Those like two areas next to each other, like those are very Dead Rising to me.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I think I might have to agree with you. I do really like the just the idea of them having a big roller coaster, like it's the Mall of America or some shit.
Yeah. The Paradise Plaza is also really good too. The
Yeah.
first one you go into, I think it does great at teaching you how to like what to expect in the mall. Like there's the big toy store, and then you could go over to the movie theater. Like there's a bunch of things there that like really teach you how to actually get through the mall.
Though maybe the funniest area is the main, I think the sort of grassy park area in the center, where every time you go out, it plays like a Limp Bizkit adjacent butt rock.
It plays Gone Guru. Excuse you.
I'm sorry, I'm not a Dead Rising expert.
I can't fucking believe it by Life Seeker. Lex Shatterball. It's not some butt rock Limp Bizkit we're talking here. Gone Guru in the Valley Who. Watch the tambourines and the didgeridoo, okay?
Speaking of that, what's your favorite song from the soundtrack?
Gone Guru by Life Seeker.
There we go.
He ain't my boy, but the brother is heavy. It's iconic. It's like the song of Dead Rising. It
is the song.
It's so good. It gets you. It's a scary song after a while because like there's just these dudes attacking you from a car with a giant gun on it. It's great. A good follow-up to that is the song that fights when you fight Adam the Clown. It's like this like high-paced, like, now ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the main event. Break that board. They like that song so much, it's actually Frank West's theme in Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a little did you know for you.
I think, there's a lot of great songs, but I think the one that is obviously the one that's been stuck in my head the most is the songs that just play when you're in the mall.
Yeah, like do.
My favorite one is the one where it's like, and it always had been it.
The generic pop song, yeah.
It's great. I love it. That and like the song that plays in the main menu, I think, is really, really good.
Yeah, it perfectly captures the zombie feeling and like the feeling that you go through when you're actually like experiencing this. It's that like sting, that like bum bum, like whenever they reuse that in games later on, you're like, yeah, man, like
dude, it's Dead Rising time.
This is Dead Rising. Yeah, it's good. And it doesn't need to be like super in your face. It's just kind of like stress building and kind of like, this is kind of like giving me anxiety, and it works perfectly.
Yeah. I got 3 more questions for you.
Sure.
Number 1, we've talked about this game's sort of genesis in that era of Capcom chasing after Western success. Do you think this game was very successful? It sold well, got a bunch of sequels, re-released on other consoles and stuff. But do you think that this game's success was a good thing in the context of that mindset? Do you think it encouraged them to do more Western-centric stuff, and then we got like a Lost Planet and Dark Void out of it?
Yeah. I think I'm very happy that Dead Rising did well. Again, just because I like it and I think it's like so unique. But then they released 2 games that weren't unique. I think Capcom kind of has these hills of working really hard on a game and then it coming out and it's great. And then they go, okay, awesome. We're going to release a bunch more games because this is what we got to do. And then they make some of the worst games ever made. And then Capcom gets another renaissance where they go, okay, we got to get back to our roots. We really got to work hard on making a game that's the best game that it can be. And it comes out and it's wonderful. And then they go, okay, then we're going to crack them out. This game does this. We're putting DLC in this game. And they go back down into another slump. I feel like we're about to hit another slump period of Capcom. I feel like we got like these really, really good Resident Evil games, and Street Fighter was like the best it was at a time. And like we're getting Mega Man collections and stuff like that. I feel like we're about to hit another Capcom slump. And I think
it's gonna be Street Fighter 6.
It has to be, right? So I think Dead Rising was kind of like at the top of the hill of one of those upward slopes. And then Lost Planet comes out, and then fucking Dark Void comes out.
And
Bionic Commando. Yeah.
The Rearmed is good. Rearmed is very good.
Yeah, but then Marvel versus Capcom comes out, and they save fighting games, Street Fighter 4, they obviously got back up there. And hey, Resident Evil 5, you know what I mean? That was a big game. It
was a big game, very focused on Western audiences, and suck shit.
Yeah, right.
The circle of life. Everything comes back to cycles of being good and then being bad.
Exactly.
That's the way it is.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that Dead Rising did not ruin Capcom at that point, did not put them in the slump. I will say Keiji Inafune did.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily Dead Rising's fault. I will blame the co-director of Dead Rising for that, though.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. Keiji Inafune causes most problems.
Yes.
Do you think this franchise has any real future?
No.
All right.
I think Capcom is not worried about the Dead Rising franchise. The problem with Dead Rising is that they did it so perfectly. I think the only thing you could really do is just kind of introduce a new mall. I don't think you need vehicles. I don't think vehicles are the answer. I don't think exosuits are the answer. I don't even think
they did have those in 4, didn't they?
I don't even think combo weapons are really the answer. Dead Rising is just so Dead Rising. The sequel to Dead Rising is great. Don't get me wrong. Dead Rising 2 is a phenomenal game. But I feel like it kind of strayed away from what made Dead Rising Dead Rising.
Yeah. Like combo weapons are fun in Dead Rising 2, but then you realize that only like 5 of them are effective.
Yeah. And God, it's the same in Dead Rising 3, if you'd believe it. In Dead Rising 3, you can get a weapon that's like a megaphone tied to a cone. So it's like a huge, you scream in it and it like blows zombies' heads up because the wave is so powerful. You could upgrade that twice to put 3 megaphones on it. And if you press a button, 80 zombies in front of you just blow up. And you can get that really early on and just negate every single interaction you ever have with a zombie. So I don't know. Here's the thing. If Capcom were to make another Dead Rising game, I don't know how they would do it. I don't know where they would do it. And I honestly don't know why they would do it. I think they just kind of need to keep re-releasing Dead Rising 1 and updating it and making it the best that it can be for every single system that it comes out on. Would I like to see another Dead Rising game? Sure, of course. I mean, I would love more Dead Rising. I just don't trust Capcom to make one.
Yeah, I think the best we're really going to get at this point is maybe like a so and so year anniversary remake of Dead Rising 1 with like better graphics and stuff. But don't change anything. I don't want better
graphics. I want it to look like a foot forever.
Yeah,
make it look grosser.
Don't change any of the gameplay, basically, or maybe just like do an HD re-release. Just do that.
Yeah,
give it the Resident Evil 4 treatment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, one more question. The last one. How has Dead Rising affected you? How has it made you think about games differently?
Wow, good question. There's nothing like Dead Rising. I'd say that there's things that have zombies in it, and there's characters like Frank West But when you put everything together and you try to put it in a blender, you'll never get the exact taste of Dead Rising. There's just something unique, strangely unique about it that no other game can really touch. And that kind of detail and that kind of specialty of Dead Rising really makes you respect what other games do that other video games cannot follow. It makes you really find the creativeness and the uniqueness in other things that you experience and say, what does this have that every other thing doesn't? And I think that's kind of like what I have defined as worth. Like when you look at something and you go, this has something that cannot be attained by any other medium. The vibes that you get, the music you listen to, the characters that they introduce, this just doesn't have what another thing has. And I think that creativity is like super important, even when you're just ripping something off. Because at the end of the day, Dead Rising is just a huge ripoff of Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
So like, keeping that in mind, like when I'm creating things and when I'm doing things, I want things to be unique, and I want it to be that to have that flair that you can't get anywhere else. But at the end of the day, your inspirations should be obvious. They should be up front and center. This is the thing that I really like, that I think can work in another medium or with a special twist on it. And I think for that reason, that is why you would enjoy this. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but when it works, it really, really works. Dead Rising is not an original game, but it's the most original game I've ever played.
Yeah. I think you summed that up really, really well.
Thank you.
Good game. Go play this.
Yeah. Hey, pick
on
it up.
Steam.
It's usually $10 on Steam.
You can get it. Yeah, it's fun. Go play it. Buy a copy on the Xbox. Have a good time.
Yeah. Hey, go buy it on your PlayStation 3. It's on the store over there.
Is it? Did it come out on PlayStation 3? I didn't even know.
Yeah. When they like finally got that game like working again on modern systems, it came out on everything.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. So hey, Dead Rising is attainable.
Attainable. You can have it within your hands for only 10 smack rolls.
Yeah.
Well, Robby, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me on the program, Lex.
It was a pleasure.
Of course.
Here we are.
Anytime.
Now I have to be on Liars for Hire now that I've got on two of the liars before.
Yeah, we'll bring you on, and we won't talk about video games. We'll
talk about video games.
I think we should have a Liars for Hire where you straight up just talk baseball for an hour.
That's what I was about to say. I think Jackson and I just need to talk about baseball, and
I would love
you
that.
And Chase just don't say anything.
Yeah, I would legitimately love that. I think we should do that.
I think it would be awesome. But here we are. It's at the end of the show. Not only that, it's the end of the first season of Electronic Fun. It's doing this show has been a lot of work, like all the other podcasts I've done, but it's also been a lot of fun. Thank you, obviously, to Robby and all the other guests that have been on this program, and Jackson and Alex and Jordan and Kat and King and B and Nifty and Tyler and Callie. Been a pleasure having all of them on. Maybe I'll do a season 2, maybe later. I'm very tired right now. So I will probably be coming on sometime in the future. Keep your ears to the ground. I will let everyone know what's going on until then. So yeah. Stay responsible, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is a Shatterball production.